Guys, everything you need to know to prepare for a Jiu-Jitsu tournament. So today I have a question here from actually my student from my academy in Bedford, Massachusetts, the Bernardo Faria Academy. My student Joe Holmes, who is a blue belt and it's competing a lot lately in the Masters division, is winning a lot of things. And he has a very compounded question here about Jiu-Jitsu tournaments that I'm gonna try to answer every question that he has here in this video. And I hope you guys enjoyed. So his question is tell me about your major preparation routine. So for example, how far in advance of the tournament date you begin to ramp up your training frequency and intensity? So that's a great question. So how far in advance should you start ramping up the training? So guys, I always had this theory in mind that I should train the 12 months because in my opinion, many times you're gonna be forced to not train Jiu-Jitsu because you're gonna have injuries, life gets on the way, things happens, and you're going to be forced to stay out of Jiu-Jitsu. If you're a professional athlete, injuries should be the only excuse that you have to not train Jiu-Jitsu. But if you're doing Jiu-Jitsu just as a hobby, I think there's a chance that many times you're going to not do Jiu-Jitsu because life got in the way or things like that, or your job, or you had to move or whatever. But anyways, talking as a professional athlete here. So in my opinion, you should train the 12 months. But of course, that some periods of the year you're going to train for more intensity, and some periods of the year you're going to train for less intensity. So what I used to do was, my main tournament was in June, which was the World Championship, right? The IBJJF World Championship. So from January to June, and normally it's in the very beginning of June. It's end of May, beginning of June. So from January to June, which would be 5 months, that would be kind of my season. And I would really push the intensity February, March, April until May half of May or something like that. So it would pretty much be 3 months and a half of very high intensity. And then all the other months in the year, I would still train very hard, but I would feel a little bit more relaxed. I would eat that thing that I want to eat, that when I'm competing, I'm doing my diet and I'm not eating. I would hang out with my friends on the weekends, maybe, back then I was single, so maybe I would go to a party on the weekend and things like that. But the intensity of the training would be very, very hard for 3 months. Those are the months that I would really try to kill myself in the training. And the rest of the year, I wouldn't go as hard. I would try to train more with the lower belts. I would do a lot of Jiu-Jitsu seminars, and then in the seminars I would train for lower belts, and etc, etc, etc. So I think that answers the first question here. I think you should train really hard 2-3 months before the tournament, before the main tournament, and you keep your training for the rest of the year as well. Then his second question here is when do you begin to taper down? Okay, so when do you start calming down the training, right? Guys, in my opinion, what I used to do is I would train really hard until 1 week before the tournament. And so let's say that the tournament is Saturday. So I would train really hard until Friday the week before. And then in the week of the tournament, I would train hard, but not as hard Monday and Tuesday. So instead of doing 2 or 3 classes Monday and Tuesday, I would do one really hard, one really good one, and one little lighter. And then I would start resting on Wednesday. So I like to, when the tournament was the main tournament, was the World Championship, I like to rest Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday and compete on Saturday. Okay, so I like to rest good 3 days to recover and this and that. And when I was resting, I was really resting, sleeping a lot, not doing a lot of, if you want to go for a walk or little jogging, I think you can do it, but I would really try to, or maybe if you want to drill, you can do it, but I really try to put my body to rest. But guys, this I'm talking about the World Championship. If we're talking about a NAGA or a IBJJF Open, I would rest 1 day. I would train until Thursday, rest Friday, compete Saturday. So I think that answers the second question. Then the third question is how do you choose your training partners? Example, same skill level, higher level, lower level, bigger guys, smaller guys. Okay, that's a great question. So guys, when I was competing, and when I was training to the World Championship, and I was in that period between February and May, I would try to go only with the best guys on the row. So I remember many days I would roll 2-3 times with Mateus, I would roll twice with Marcelo, I would roll 2 times with John Satava, and all Tinoco was also there, all those guys in a row. So that was my system, that was my way. But I don't mean that this is the best way. I think everybody in Jiu-Jitsu, there's no recipes for success. You gotta create your own recipe. So you gotta test a lot of things. And to me, I would feel really good training with those guys in a row, tapping a lot, getting beat up. But that was the way that in my mind I was like, okay, I'm doing the right thing and I'm getting myself prepared to this main tournament here. And then again, in the rest of the year, I would train like with whoever I want to train. I would travel for seminars, train for the students in the seminars. I used to stay like 1 week, 2 weeks on each academy around the world, train with everybody, try to develop new techniques. But on that phase, on those 3 months, I would only try to train with the best guys I could. So I think that answers this 3rd question. Then the 4th question, if you have to fly to the venue, how far in advance do you like to arrive? Another great question. So if we're talking about the World Championship, I used to fly on Wednesday, rest Thursday and Friday at California, and compete on Saturday. I always like to give 2 days to myself to get used about the jet lag. California, there's a little bit of jet lag from the Easter here. So I like it to get there, rest for 2 or 3 days, and then I'm ready to compete. And for example, if we're going to compete in Abu Dhabi, which there's a very long jet lag, maybe I would even go 1 week before, but anyways, I also have competed in Italy once, and the tournament was Saturday. I arrived there Thursday night, and I did very well. And it was a very tough tournament. It was a tournament that they were paying a good prize in cash. So there was a lot of great guys. I arrived on Thursday night, rested on Friday, competed on Saturday. And I know examples, like Ronaldo Jacaré, for example. There was one ADCC that he won his division and got 2nd. He lost to Roger Gracie in the finals of the open class. And he was having a hard time getting his visa to go to US. And then he got his visa in the last minute. So I heard that he was literally like sleeping from Friday to Saturday in the airplane, and he arrived Saturday morning, went straight to the venue, and still did very well. He lost in the finals of the open class, but he still won his division and made it to the finals of the open class. So I mean, like, you can always overcome obstacles, but talking about the best way to do it, I would go like 2 days before or so. I would try that. And then, do you only practice your A game, your game, or are you preparing for other scenarios? Great question. So when I was preparing for the tournament, I would really focus on my A game. That would be my focus. But for example, I would also try to watch out for what my opponents are doing. Not as much as my A game, because I'm very big on like focus on your game, not so much on your opponent's game. But for example, there was a time that I would go compete against one opponent that I have that was very good as well, like Luis Paz, and he was very good with the tornado sweep. Like, he would go to the tornado sweep to engage with the legs and that. So I would ask Mateus, my training partner, or Marcelo's, to start on that position. Hey, can you start in the tornado and let me see what I have to do? I would do things like that. So if I knew that the guy is very good on how he sets up the triangle, I would ask a training partner to do the same thing, just so I'm prepared for that if that happens. But I would really emphasize on focus on my A game. All I care is about my game. I don't care so much about my opponent's game. And I'm always trying to bring my opponent to my game since the very beginning of the match. So that's one thing that I used to do. And then another question here was, do you focus on live rolling or situational sparrings? Guys, when I was competing, to me, it was kind of like 90% live rolling, 10% positional. Was very low position compared to the amounts of live rolling that I used to do. And remember, back then, in my time, IBJJF was the main tournament, and ADCC every 2 years, right? But there's not so much like super fights, events with all different rules and that. Nowadays, with all these events so focused on submission only, I think like doing positional training is making even more sense, because you get really good in defending submissions and attacking submissions. But I mean, like, to win IBJJF tournaments where scores matters a lot, advantages matter, everything matters, I think live rolling is more important than position training. That's my opinion. So I used to do more position training. But if I was training today with the Jiu-Jitsu scenario as it is today, I would also focus a lot on positional training, because I think like you really refine your submissions, you refine your escapes, and I think it makes a lot of sense, you know, like, so I would say like nowadays, if I could go back on time, I would try to do 50-50. If I'm rolling for 1 hour, 30 minutes positional, 30 minutes live rolling, that's kind of what I would try to do. And so let me keep going here. Do you focus on live roll? Okay, we talk about this one. How do you elevate your heart rate just before your match while you are in the bullpen? Okay, that's a great question. So guys, what I used to do is, I have competed a lot of tournaments in my life. And one thing I noticed is like, even IBJJF, which is the most organized nowadays, your bracket's supposed to start, your bracket's supposed to start 12 p.m. You go to the warm-up 12 p.m. and they actually call you 12:40 or 12:30. Nowadays, it's getting better. Like the schedules are getting better, so you kind of know exactly the time that you're gonna compete. Back then, when I was competing, it was not as much like that. So what I would do is, I would go to the warm-up area, do some very good stretching, feel good with my body, and then when they call my name, because when they call your name, you still have a good like 3 to 10 minutes before you compete. When they call my name, I would really start exercise, you know, like I really like jumping jacks, even some push-ups, and I like to slap my body, kind of like to wake up my body, you know, like I'll do things like this. I felt good doing that. It was kind of like a notice to my body, like, okay, we're about to start here. And I have seen many other people doing that as well. And there are studies about that as well, that when you hit your body, you give your body a message. So I was giving my body a message. You're like, we're about to start. Let's get ready. I would do push-ups. I would do jumping jacks. I would do everything I could to try to elevate my heart rate, but nothing excessive as well. Like I wouldn't go crazy on that. And it was more like a way to clear the mind as well. Like we're about to start. And so wouldn't go too much crazy on that, but really try to move and get ready for that, you know, like. And then, do you watch film of your opponents? That's a great question. I do, but not as much. Again, I like to really focus on my game and not so much on my opponent's game. But for example, I would watch some videos and see like, oh man, this guy pull guard really fast. So can I pull guard before him? Or maybe can I fake a double leg when he's pulling? Or things like that, you know, like, or maybe like, oh man, he's really good with triangles, so I gotta watch out for this. But I wouldn't go too crazy, you know, like try to calculate everything he's doing. Because I think you're gonna start thinking so much about them, and you stop thinking about yourself. So you stop thinking about your A game, which is more important than them. So yes, I do watch my opponent's matches. I used to watch, but not as much. And when I started Jiu-Jitsu back in 2001, there was no YouTube. Don't forget that. So there was no way to watch it, which was kind of a good thing. And one thing that I didn't like doing, that was personal, is like when I was in the tournament and there's my bracket going on, I didn't enjoy much watching the matches at that time, because I would feel like always someone's gonna win, so always someone's gonna do well, and you're bad. You normally have like a good guy here and a bad guy here, right? The good guy is saying like, you're gonna win, don't worry, everything is good, you're doing great. And the bad guy is like, oh my god, that guy is good, be careful, blah blah blah. So when I used to watch them competing during that day, my bad guy would talk a little more than I wanted. So I didn't really enjoy watching them competing in the tournament. I would watch at home and on YouTube and that kind of stuff, but not in the tournament. And then last question, do you customize your game plan based on what you think will work best against different opponents? I customize a little bit, not so much. So for example, if I know that this guy is a really good wrestler, I have two sweeps, right, that very well know, like the single leg half guard and the Faria deep half guard sweep. If I know that the guy is a really good wrestler, I know that there's a chance that sweeping him with the single leg might be a little hard, so I might switch to the deep half guard, the Faria sweep, the deep half guard Faria sweep. If I know that the guy, it's kind of like tall and spazzy and good balance, maybe the deep half guard is gonna be hard, so I'm gonna try more the single leg half guard. If I know that the guy has a good spider guard that he placed both feet on the hip, for example, I might go to the over-under brother, not the over-under pass, which is the one that I control over the leg. So I would switch things like that, but I wouldn't switch like, oh, I'm gonna do spider guard against this guy. No, I'm not a spider guard person. I'm a half guard person. So I could switch a little bit inside my A game, but never outside my A game. So anyways, guys, I think I answered all the questions here from Joe. Great questions, Joe. And I hope that helps you. And I think that's about it. Hope you guys enjoyed, guys. Thank you. Please help me out to grow my YouTube channel. Just click subscribe. And to watch more videos, just click under see more videos. I hope you enjoyed.
BJJFanatics.com. Use the promo code YouTube Faria to get 10% off any instructional video. Improve your jiu-jitsu faster.